Probate is one of the least understood segments within our real estate communities. And today I have Carolyn Castillo from Florida on the channel to talk about how she went from almost being done with real estate to diving into probate and now has closed over 100 deals with her proven systems that she is going to share with you as a launching point for you and your career. If you've been looking for that something and you just want more from your real estate career, this probate piece may be absolutely incredible for you. The beauty of it is Carolyn is one of my partners at the Wolfpack at eXp Realty, and you can absolutely partner with both of us to get our coaching and everything for absolutely free so that we can help you along your journey to take your career from maybe this isn't for me to absolutely crushing it, providing a lucrative, career path for you, for your family, and obviously affecting so many amazing clients as well. So without further ado, let's bring on Carolyn. She is Carolyn Castillo from Jacksonville, Florida. Has an absolutely incredible story, as I mentioned in the introduction. But Carolyn, tell us a little bit about your start in real estate. I know you're a Wolfpack OG. So let's talk a little bit about that, and that'll lead us to the probate magic that you've created here.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate to be here. So I actually got into real estate when I was 18 years old, and I started off doing rentals. Very early on, I figured out how to be a listing agent, and so I've pretty much been a listing agent ever since. Then went on to do traditional real estate sales, and had a bunch of fun doing that. And then once I got my first probate opportunity, everything changed for me, and I found immense purpose and income in doing probate real estate, and that's where everything kind of took a right turn for me.
Okay, perfect. So you talk about having fun and all the things, but you mentioned purpose. And were you feeling like you were lacking purpose in the real estate game prior to finding this specific niche that you've taken to such an amazing level?
Yes. I was very much at a point where the money was good. I was successful. I was getting deals, but I was working that traditional market, very retail. And so it was like all the listings I had, I really just felt like I had like 10 bosses, and it just was kind of like, to really take it to that next level, even become more successful, it was going to require me to be like the mayor of the town. And that's not my personality. It's not my style. I really like serving people and helping people. And when I got the opportunity of probate, people don't really care about your accolades. They don't care about, your stats. These are people in need and need help. So it was, for me, it worked out perfectly because it was like almost like I was in ministry and making money at the same time. So it's been a perfect combination for my soul.
Well, knowing you, I know how much that would align for sure, and finding that purpose is huge. So take us back to that first probate deal. What did that look like? Where did it come from, first of all?
Yeah. So the first probate deal was actually what every other agent would probably get. And it was just a referral. So it was just literally someone just saying, I need help selling my dad's house. I had never knew what probate was. I never heard of the term probate. And it was actually a very messy one. Okay. But once I was able to, what really got it for me was being able to help somebody in a very difficult situation. And I was able to, I'll tell you, it's a kind of a funny story. So dad, in his 80s, got a 30-year-old girlfriend. And in the process of their relationship, she got dad to make her the beneficiary in all of his investment stocks and everything like that. So the only asset the family had was the house. And so the girlfriend had lock and keyed the house. She wasn't letting the family over there. And so that's why they couldn't sell the property. So good thing they called Carolyn, because I went over there and had a conversation with this young lady that was in the home, helped her leave the house civilly, and got the family back access to the house. We got the house prepared for sale, and we sold the property. So that was literally my first experience in probate. It was a bit of a crazy one, but it definitely opened the door to find out what is probate and how do I even find more of these.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about probate, because I have the assumption that it's just if there's a deceased, owner.
Mhm.
Is that what you're speaking about, or do you deal specifically with only things that have gone through probate, not necessarily with trusts and wills and all those things?
Yeah, so specifically with probate, why can realtors specifically target it? It's because it's a legal process. So, like all of the estate planning attorneys out there, what is their sales pitch? You don't want to go to probate, so get a trust set up. So, the only difference between probate and having a trust is that a trust is handled privately. So, it's not a court, it's not a public court event. But probate is a public court event. So it's very similar like a divorce or a foreclosure. We can buy a list. We can basically get access to these public court records. But just as a summary, probate is basically the administration of the decedent's assets being transferred over to their beneficiaries. So probate doesn't just mean real estate. Probate can be for bank accounts, it can be for cars, jewelries, anything like that. So it's not everybody that goes through probate has a house to sell.
Right. And so do you only focus on probate? You don't go in the trust sector unless it comes up by referral or something natural. You're saying that your lead generation source is those lists, and that's kind of how you
Yeah.
build the business.
Once you dominate in probate, then that process, the families are still dealing with a lot of the same things when you're going through a trust. It's just, it's not, you don't have to go through the legal process of getting authorization to sell. But property preparation, disagreements among heirs, all the things like that are still going to be in a trust. It's just with probate for us as a realtor, as a lead source, it's a very easy and attainable way to just get consistent listings where you don't have to rely on any favors or referrals from attorneys or anything like that.
Interesting. So it's a very, and all you have to do is have a little bit of a heart to serve people, because there are some crazy things that come up, and some are, I'm sure, turnkey and super easy. So now that you're in it, think back to, after you close that first transaction, were you just head down, let's go, this is what I found my calling? And if so, like, were there any hurdles that you saw, or was there any misconceptions that you had prior to jumping in that our viewers might have?
Yeah. So that particular one, I was still trying to find myself, if you will. So I didn't just do that one deal and just be like, that's it, I'm going all into probate. I basically just was like, this is interesting. These are people in need. So I started looking for probates, and I just added them to my lead generation prospecting. So at that time, I was doing pre-foreclosures, for sale by owners, would do some expired listings, regular cold calling, circle prospecting. So I just kind of added it into my wheel of fun there. And I was running into these, I would end up being able to pick up like 1 or 2 listings from them. So I'm like, this is really cool. Well, what ended up happening is I got a family that I helped, and it was 2 young men, 18 and 20. And I was sitting at their dining room table, and their mom had basically went to the hospital to check on a stomach pain that she had, and mom never came back home. Okay. Now, mom, when I was sitting at this house, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my kids right now sitting at the table. And, dishes were still in the sink, the mail's on the counter. Like the house is just like, you left your house for the day and you didn't come back, And that was really the case that just changed everything for me. Because I said, wow, people are really need help in these situations. They need to get these houses prepared for sale. These boys, like, they had no idea what to do. I mean, they were literally grieving the loss of their mom, much less trying to think about, what am I going to do with all mom's stuff? How am I going to deal with this house? How am I going to pay for all these bills that are coming in? And so that was really the one that I said, you know what? I'm gonna look to work on these more, not just as one-off, listing opportunities. I'm gonna look how to help solve these people's problems And that's really what led me on the whole journey to just completely niching down. So I literally don't do any transaction. I'm 100% probate real estate right now.
Okay. So you dove completely into it.
Yeah.
Right. And now obviously for your partners and things like that, you provide that mentorship to do that. And the truth is that, I talk a lot about, finding the winners in the market and changing your marketing to, certain aspects of the market, whether it's investors or first time home buyers or sellers, as we've seen for a long time now. But your market never changes. In fact, there's a pretty large population that's going to be coming up into that. So tell me, how you dove full face first into the legal side of it. Because it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to sell probate houses, right? That's how it started. And then you got into it, but then you realize that there's some nuance to it. And I think there's a lot of fear in the legal, right? Bringing attorneys in, if you're not in an attorney state or whatever. So talk a little bit about how you started unpacking the legal, ramifications and the laws and how to navigate, these transactions as an expert.
Yeah. So when you had asked me earlier, what was like the biggest maybe hurdle or, misconceptions in going into it, it was definitely this portion of it. So prior to getting into probate, I really have never dealt with attorneys. I never had a reason to deal with them. So I always, held attorneys to like a really high like caliber of, if the attorney says like that's it, and so what ended up starting to happen is one attorney was doing things that the other attorney wasn't doing. So I was seeing some cases move forward quicker where other cases were being held up and held up and held up. And so I started doing a deep dive on my market and just looking at, and I always recommend this for agents, is don't believe what one attorney says. Look up 10 attorneys' websites in your area. Read through them and see what their process is for dealing with probate. And what you're going to find is they all have a different way of doing things. And so little by little, as I did case by case, and it's kind of maddening because you work with every attorney in town. So it's different when you're just working off of attorney referrals, because maybe you're just working with one guy and that's his process. And really the attorney becomes your client at that point because he's the one giving you the deal. So you just kind of bend your process to whatever he wants to do. But when you get the opportunity to work with like multiple attorneys at the same time, now is where you become really dangerous and you're able to really see, well, I see the trick that this guy used. Maybe I can go ahead and help another family do that same thing on this case. And that's what I started doing. And I was like, oh my gosh. So now, having doing so many deals, I will call the attorneys when I get on these cases and I will just kind of like help like offer some creative ways of how we can overcome certain things. And they're normally like, oh yeah, sure, we can do that. And then, my clients just go right down the yellow brick road, So I think for, realtors is, not putting yourself that, oh, that's what the attorney does and I don't get involved in that. Instead, educate yourself on what that probate process is in your state. The funny thing is, Jeremy, is that probate is actually a global thing, okay?
People die everywhere.
People are dying, okay? And the thing is I thought, well, is probate just in Florida? Like, is it just probate is just in Florida? No, it's all throughout the United States. The legal process is called probate. And even beyond in other countries, it's also called probate. So there's each state, each city, county, each country has a little bit of differences. So whichever state, whichever counties you serve, just, endeavor yourself into, 10 different websites of attorneys. Don't look at one, trust me, okay? Look at 10. And then, when you get those opportunities to work on a case, that's where I say that's your training. That's where you have an opportunity to really get on the phone with that attorney and say, hey, based on what I know, this is the timeline, this is the process. Is that how you handle things as well? And you start developing, the best practices for your area. And then you can just copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking to these attorneys and building these relationships and things like that, I think that there's a misconception that attorneys they want our business. I know now that they want us to be competent and help them sometimes the way they want to be helped. But talk about your communication with attorneys now, 100 deals in on the lead side, right? Obviously, once you have the transaction, you can kind of show your stuff and then you become, I mean, I would assume at some point, some of these top, probate attorneys have, tapped you for referrals as well. But talk to me about how that transition kind of came and when it went from education to partner.
Well, I think really understanding the attorney's perspective and understanding their strengths and weaknesses, So from the attorney's perspective, their one and only job is to transfer the legal names of an asset over to the beneficiaries. That's where their job begins and stops. They don't get involved in anything else. So like realtors, what are we taught? Follow up, follow up, follow up. Like we know how to track somebody down. We know how to get that signature today, right? But an attorney, what they do is they just send out the email and that's it. If you got it, you got it. If you did it, you did it, right? And so you wonder why your case is all dusty on his desk is because he sent you the email a month ago and you missed it, right? So I started realizing that's really where attorneys need that assistance, and they're not going to have their paralegals tracking people down. So I started just helping the attorneys by asking them, like, what is it that you're outstanding from the client? Like, is there any documents that you're needing to be able to move your case forward? Have you been able to get in contact with all the beneficiaries? So now not only am I an efficient resource, as we're going through the probate process to help them sell the house, but I'm actually providing value to the attorney by helping them get some of the loose ends and get things tied up that they don't really have the time or the bandwidth to do.
Or the need to, right? They know eventually somebody will come down the road, but being that the piece of real estate is usually the last thing to get offloaded, right? And that's the last thing that they're like, okay, you can sell the house, you can't sell the house, whatever it is. That's incredible that you walk alongside them, you partner with them and help them outside of the scope, right? So notice she didn't just say like, I just, wait for them to send me the letters of appointment and we're ready to roll. And, that's when I put the house on the market. No, she's like, oh, you need this beneficiary's contact, and that middleman and that communication, I'm sure stands out head and shoulders above the others that are, just dabbling in it, just had a referral partner, pop up or whatever. I think that's absolutely incredible and probably one of the number one reasons to your success. And why not, right? You're learning the process as you go. Now you know what this document is. You know where to find this document. You know what you need from the clerk or recorder, whatever it is. So that's really cool. Can you share your favorite story in probate? You've already shared a couple, but one that had some challenges that you were able to bring back together and overcome those challenges and have some success with.
So I have a cool one I could share. And it also shows how you can make a lot of money doing real estate in probate. Okay. Because these people have the problems, exactly what you said, that people kind of shy away from them because they have the problems. But really, if there's problems, they need solutions. And that's where we make money. If we're not solving a problem, then we're not really going to be making a lot of money. Right. So as realtors, like last summer when they got rid of, buyer's agent compensation, and those different things, now we have to provide our value. Like, what are you actually doing for me to receive, this commission check? So in probate, I've been able to charge as high as 6% just on the listing side of the commission. Okay. And how am I able to do that? Because I've literally become the hands and feet for this executor overcoming every single thing that he had to do. So this son inherited his dad's estate, but him and his dad had been estranged for about 10 years. When he told me about the house, he would say, "Oh, the mistress lives there." Right. So you could tell there was some bad blood. Okay. Probably, dad ran off with the mistress to Florida and they were estranged ever since. So much as for he didn't even go to his dad's funeral, just to give you the context of how disengaged they were from each other. Well, guess what? He was the executor of his estate. He was the beneficiary of his dad's estate. So he inherited a house here in St. Augustine, Florida. And to his knowledge, the mistress lived there. And he didn't know how to approach her, even talk to her, because they had been estranged for 10 years. The house was probably full of his stuff. Like, he literally had no idea of what he was going to do and how he was going to do it. So I basically stepped in. I was like, well, go ahead and I'll represent you here in Florida for everything and anything that you would need to get done. So me as a probate realtor, I was taking this on that I'm possibly going to have to be doing mediation with the mistress, right, inside the house. There's going to be a house that needs to be cleared out and prepared for sale. And this property is going through probate. So there's going to be attorneys and there's going to be a legal action that has to be done. So I basically took a listing agreement from him on a 6% compensation for my services. He mailed me the keys to his house. I've never met this guy in person to this day. It was all done over the phone. Okay. Yep. And mailed me the keys. And I went over there, spoke with the lady. She couldn't have been nicer. I explained to her what was happening, what was the situation. She agreed to get vacated as soon as possible. We went in, we did a property preparation for him. So one of the cool things about probate real estate is I've been able to launch out basically a property preparation business that my husband takes care of. And we invoiced the estate about $5,000. This was to remove everything from the home, do some painting, do some little handyman work that needed to be done, get the house prepared for sale. And then we went ahead, put the property on the market. That was when buyer's agent commission wasn't a thing. The buyer came directly from an open house. I ended up charging the buyer a 1% commission to do the deal. On a $400,000 listing opportunity, I walked away with roughly about 30 grand. So probate can be very lucrative, okay? And in this case, it was very simple. Yes, it was a crazy situation, but the lady was nice. She moved right out. We went over, handled the whole thing from beginning to end. And I think we also helped him sell his dad's car that he had in the garage. So, you really just can be that person's solution and get very well compensated for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's incredible. And, you just touched on some stacking, right? Some value stacking. I call those, kind of toolkits. You have the clear out company, you have the estate sale companies, you have all of these different vendors that you can kind of plug and play at your disposal. And that makes, yes, you can easily be the point person. Maybe at that point you didn't have all the pieces in place, but now I know you do. And so that's an incredible kind of tip there. Is it just doesn't stop at the closing table. It just doesn't stop once you get the listing agreement signed. Like, if you can do other things, in this case, your husband's business, right, that he takes care of. And, I'm sure you drive business to that, service a ton, probably created out of need, like speed, right, and need, or maybe, follow through, who knows. But
two teenage sons, okay.
Yeah, perfect.
And you got a handy husband, it just kind of falls in place,
Yeah, and so everybody's working together, but they're, have their own business and so on. So that's really cool, the kind of way that you stack that. And very important when I talk about industry partners and community partners to have those tools in place with something like probate. So you've hinted at kind of your system, right, and what you're doing. So walk me through your repeatable system, you know, you don't have to give it all away, because I know you have your community and we can tell people all about that. But, you know, give me a bird's eye view of your system and process as far as how you're, you know, starting the relationship to, you know, closing the transaction.
Yeah, it's really pretty simple. It starts with a phone consultation. So typically, we're putting these deals together from cold calls. So, agents in my group, what I teach is how to get your business through cold calling. And you basically are booking a consultation with these families. You're qualifying them just like you would for any other real estate lead. And then once you qualify them, you if it seems like a deal that you can work on, that this would work for, you know, you and the family, then you do a property tour where you're basically able to assess, like, what do they need? Do they need property preparation? Do they need, you know, is there something materially wrong with this house, or what is going to be the strategy for getting this property sold? And then basically they hire our team. So it's very straightforward. And what you're basically presenting is a concierge service that you're helping executors from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible, especially a place like Florida where some people move.
Sorry. Let me let the dog out. Sorry.
You're good.
Right. Sorry about that.
Don't worry. All right. So you're presenting this service from beginning to end, and you're taking that on. As far as purchasing the lists, where would a new agent go to find those lists?
So the cool thing is like we discussed before, is probate is a public record. So literally, a lot of my agents in my group literally just set up accounts on their county courthouse, and they can actually download them themselves. Okay. If you can't set up an online account, you can actually go in person. You can, like in Jacksonville, they don't have an online. You have to go in person, and they'll give you a printout of, you say, I want for the month, I want for the week, like however often you want to go down there. But there's plenty of lead providers out there that will give you, you know, this type of data that you have to pay for. But I like to tell people when they're brand new, because it also gets you really involved more in the process. Like, take a trip down to your courthouse, you know, like get to know what probate feels like, you know, look at the clerk of courts, you know, because the families that are going through probate, 9 times out of 10, this is the process they're going through. The more that you can walk in the executor's footsteps, the better it's going to be for you as an agent, because you're really going to kind of understand what they're going through firsthand. Like me personally, I've never been an executor, you know, but I've helped hundreds of executors, you know. But if you've never done it, to walk in somebody else's shoes and really see how it is the best way, you know.
Well, especially because you have so many people that are at a different phase, right? 10 years estranged to a mom, right? That's living in the house with the kids, that you just on this call, you've talked about those two very opposite ends of the spectrum. I would imagine most are probably more in the middle, but you never know. So that keeps it interesting. So that's an incredible, you know, journey, and obviously the cold calling and that, you know, but I mean, cold calls, it's not just blindly calling a list, right? You have something to offer, I think. And I know that within your community, you do a ton of role playing and scripting. So talk a little bit about your community that you've kind of created to, you know, grow and partner with agents across, you know, the country and maybe the world, since probate's a pretty across the board thing.
Yeah. So, you know, I personally had hand trained agents one by one in my state, in the counties that I work in. And what I realized is, I said, I gotta put this on video. Okay. If I have to say the same thing over again. Okay. So it really came out of, you know, just streamlining the training that I was doing for my own personal team. And I literally, my exact system that I do currently to this day, from cold call all the way to close, I have recorded every single part of that process. I think it's about 75 videos, from how to use the script, to how to do the cold calling, to the schedule, to booking the consultation, preparing for the consultation. going on the property tour, speaking with the executors, calling the attorneys, like exactly my process. I have it fully documented so someone can start with us and just go exactly through exactly the process so they can create this in their city, their town. And then we get together once a week and I do a live training. So in this live training, it's more like, what is happening in Carolyn's life? Like today I had my training and, what's happening in 2025, September 8th, so you'll get that real live, combination of the process, right? Today we were talking about active on the market. Once you've gotten the listing, you've done everything, now you're active on the market. What do you need to be doing as a probate listing agent, So we shared some things that are dynamically happening in the market today. And then I make myself available for the agents to just do real deal talk. Because in probate, there's situations, okay? And, just having somebody to kind of just spitball it with and just saying, this is what the executor said, this is the beneficiaries, this is the attorney. So I make myself available to kind of really help them in those day-to-day things. And then the cool part is that we cold call 2 times a week together, okay? So you're actually cold calling live right next to me while I'm cold calling my market. Other agents are cold calling their market. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback about this because it's not only do you get to cold call next to me, like some of my best favorite videos on my YouTube is me just recording myself live cold calling. Like people like to see it, So not only do you get to just be in the room with me, but it's also the accountability. So it's like one of those things, like if your friend's meeting you at the gym, you're going to go to the gym. But if your friend's not meeting you at the gym, there's a chance you could talk yourself out of it, right? So a lot of agents have told me, I show up because I know you're going to be there. And then, and then they end up booking a deal and they're happy,
Yeah.
So yeah. So
absolutely. That accountability, process and those kind of things. And obviously, if you're interested in learning more about that, we can connect. We'll talk about that in 1 second. But if you're interested in partnering, getting coaching for absolutely free, let's reach out. But as we kind of wrap this up, what is one piece of advice for somebody that's kind of standing on the line? They're doing deals, they're not fulfilled, and they're kind of leaning towards probate. What is the first thing you would do besides join your community in order to, take that first step in their location, wherever they're at?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend doing some research on probate in your area and really seeing how big this opportunity is. Okay. This is not like a trend. This is not something that's cool. This is literally a recession-proof real estate niche. So, right now, when most of our markets are kind of struggling, okay, guess what? People are still dying. Okay. And people still need to sell their houses. When families inherit these houses, they already have their own house, okay? A lot of times these houses are inherited with mortgages, with utility bills that have to be paid, HOA bills that have to be paid. So you're talking about targeting a motivated seller that has to sell 9 times out of 10. When you do the research, you're going to find that 70% of inherited properties are sold, okay? So the question is, are you going to be the agent that has their hand up that says, I can facilitate this for you. I can help you with this. And what I love too, Jeremy, is real estate is a brick by brick business, right? It's not a get rich quick scheme. You don't just like from one day to the next, you're just like the best agent on planet Earth. So with probate real estate, it really allows you like, hey, let me just start off by making some cold calls, booking appointments, and I even just get the easy ones. That's how I started, like, yeah, we want to sell. Okay, I'll be over there. All right, sounds good. And it was just a regular listing opportunity, right? But as I got deeper into it and I sat down at that kitchen table with those boys, I was like, you know what? Let me build out some systems and processes to help families like this. So now when I got on those calls, I could dive into their problems because sometimes people tell you, yeah, we want to sell, but we're not ready yet. That not ready yet, that's where the probate realtor lives because you're there to create those solutions So if you're talking about, the next, how long are you going to be selling real estate? The next 10 years, the next 20 years, this is a business that you can build little by little, brick by brick, and you can be known in your community to providing these resources, being this trusted resource for attorneys, for executors, for your churches, for, all people in this stage of life, so that's my pitch. Get into probate real estate and you won't be sorry.
That's awesome. Well, that's incredible. And, props to you for taking the bull by the horns and absolutely diving in full force, creating a concierge service. That is, people are so concerned about AI and being replaced and all these things. One key point you did hit on is that these people probably have their own houses and their own, estates and so on. So this is just an added extra usually not expected, as they're walking down the street. So that's awesome. What is the best place for people to reach out to you and connect with you?
You can schedule an appointment with me and we can set up a one-on-one meeting, talk about your goals, and if probate real estate's a good niche for you. I'm absolute top dollar on YouTube and also Instagram. So you can hang out with me there too as well.
That's awesome. Definitely connect, and we'll put all those links below. But if you're interested in partnering with Carolyn and I, getting all of this magic special sauce, our coaching, our encouragement, we can both come alongside you and help you build your business. So you can book a call on the reagentwolfpack.com or in Carolyn's link. Make sure you mention this interview, and we'll make sure we come together and partner and change your lives as we have done for so many. Thanks so much, Carolyn, for your time today, and we'll see you guys all next time on the Wolfpack Way.